Good morning, Breakfast Club family. This is Mark Stevens with your host, Joe Shoup. Welcome to the Breakfast Club on this Tuesday, September 20th, 2016. I'm quite sure we're going to have people back from last week. And again, as I said, hopefully you brought some other people with you for part two, talking about going from a group to a team and which is more important. So with that being said, we're going to get right into it. Joe, how you doing this morning?
Good morning, Mark. I'm doing fantastic and amazing. I put a smile on a number of people's faces yesterday answering that question just like that. So thanks for giving me that. Everybody always smiles when you do that. They want to know what's up.
Yep, they do, but it makes people's day.
So look, we'll get into this, as you said, we're in, I hate to put it this way, but we're in a tough industry because it's not just the company. We got a phenomenal company right now that is in Kula Brands. I mean, a phenomenal company, a phenomenal leaders. Peter and Doug are phenomenal people. I had the pleasure of meeting Len Kenzie the other day personally, and what a good guy. What good people they are. I mean, they really are good people. And it's a pleasure to work with them and to know that behind the scenes, behind what we're supposed to do, that they're doing the right thing. It's pretty amazing. So I was wondering if people could type in the box, say, oh, they did, somebody did. Yeah, hi, Ken. Good morning. Ken, by the way, when I have an this morning, and if we're done before that, would you give me a call and communicate? If not, I won't be done till 10:30, 11 o'clock, so 10:30 be fine. So just give me a call. I want to talk to you. So, Mark, that being said, it's our, it's our responsibility to grow the company. For those who want to participate in the growth of the company, it's our responsibility to do that. We took on a task. We said, yes, we like this. We saw this. Oh my gosh, I'm going to join this company and I'm going to participate. Now, once again, those who joined the company for the purposes of royalties and people don't like to recruit and sell. That's one of our biggest selling points, is that it's not necessary to do that to actually get paid or to receive royalties. So that's a pretty good benefit or a pretty good selling point. It did. We have a responsibility. And if you've never been successful in this industry, and I don't care who I'm talking to at this stage, Mark, I don't care who's listening to this that has not money. It doesn't matter who you are. You have a responsibility to keep learning and to learn more. If you're going to do the same things you did in your other companies that got you nowhere, and you're going to blame the company, now you're going to try the same tactics here, you're going to end up in the same place. Remember that old Chinese proverb? I'll paraphrase it. Be careful that you're going. You might end up where you're headed. So it's important to know and to recognize one more little piece of, actually. And a great philosopher of our time said, when you don't know something, it's really a shame that something maybe you ought to know, you're aware of it, but you don't know it. And it's really a shame when one doesn't know. But here's what he said that was profound. When you don't know, you don't know. And some people, Mark, even after all the seminars, webinars, talks, Breakfast Club and all, they still just in their minds are not understanding that they don't know that they don't know. And with regards to communications, I believe, you know this, and I can put 50 people as testimonials to know that once you understand the skills we're going to talk about today, you realize you didn't know that you didn't know. And sadly, for most people, if they stay there, their egos get in the way because they don't want to learn. We hear it all the time. You got to keep learning. But, and in my opinion, the foundation of this business is learning to communicate. It's learning to verbally have a conversation with someone and professionally and effectively move a person to the next step. We had 3 ways all last week and beginning this week, over the weekend, with one of our new groups. And I can tell you the communication. Mark, I had to learn pretty fast, you know, to do 3 ways here because, as you know, I knew nothing. Funding, royalties, and how the system worked here with Peter and Doug. Didn't know any of it. So I've studied and practiced and, you know, put our communication class skills, things we've taught and learned in techniques, and I've put them to use and incorporated it into the 3-way, which we call the direct call. And it's important that everybody learn that. If you want to bring somebody to a third party, which I think is absolutely necessary, you better have someone on the other end that's prepared to do it, that isn't fumbling, that knows where to go. And next week, we'll have some of those people on the call to tell you what they experienced as we get to the team building portion of this series. So the bottom line is have to keep learning, have to learn communication skills. So we'll go over some of those, but I wanted to bring you into that, Mark, and just the importance of communication for people so they understand. I mean, I know people, yeah, I get it, I heard it, but you know, let Mark sit there and give you a test and see what skills you really know by role playing with you and see if you can handle it. That would be the ultimate test, wouldn't you think?
Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about the importance, Mark, of getting their language right, skills right, their techniques. And I'm going to put a few things up in a minute. I think that one of the things what I'll put up here is, you know, and I'll go back to this one, but we're talking about teamwork, going from group to team. We'll go back to this and go back to all the things that go into that teamwork. You don't understand how to communicate. You don't learn the techniques. Probably none of this is going to matter. And this is what I say to, because I know I have people, leaders and other companies that think they know. And you know, the bottom line is, even if they know, what about teaching your people the skills? And then we get the people with the skills, Mark, or that, you know, you teach them, tell them about the skills, and they have every reason in the world why they're not going to, or why they're not going to work, or why they're not going to pick up the phone. And I found this quote, lost all my excuses, I found my results. And I think it's really important to understand that excuses get in the way. Oh, I have to do this, I can't pick up the phone, I can't. You should be following up with all the people that maybe, you know, filled out a capture page for you, or people that you just want to share the information and get them to look at the capture page and look at the 35-minute video. So Mark can just let you talk about that, the importance of that, you know, what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, you know, again, in anything, in any business, communication has to be it, because, again, as we say, it has to make sense. And when you in business, you want to be as a professional, but if you can't talk that language and you can't, you know, talk to someone and they don't understand what you're saying, then your business is not going to be successful. And, you know, and again, if you look at the industry, it's really, I mean, it's in terrible shape. The ones that seem to be making money are the gurus who are putting programs out there they're not necessarily what people need. They're getting paid. They're the ones that are getting the money. But the people that are trying to participate in this industry, 97% of them are not making any money, and they're spending more money on auto ship and things of that nature, to run their business, so they're not making any money. But the other part, the other sad part is what we're talking about. They don't know how to communicate. And if you do not know how to communicate, you can't even have a team. You can have a group, but you can't have a team. So it's very important, and the only way to do that is that you're going to have to study. You're going to have to, take a class that will teach you that. And there's very few, if any, out there that are teaching that. They're doing everything else with the exception of teaching that, because, again, without the communication, you're just not going to be successful. It's that simple.
Mark, can you see that screen? Did I share that properly?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah, I can see it.
Have somebody put some notes in there. I can't go back and see responses if you don't when you type in, because of the screen share. So Mark will let you know. But let's talk about that, because going from group to a team has to be consistent in their activities. You can have people that choose to communicate through social media, and that's what they do. They still need to learn how to pick up the phone. There'll be people who will not go social media, and they're just going to pick up the phone. I have a whole group doing that now. And so either way, certainly there are different options to truthfully, a system is processes. That's really what they are. And what, in my opinion, that probably the best quarterback that ever played the game, and I know people dispute this, I guess it's arguable. But for me, Peyton Manning was the ultimate thinker in football. Might not have always had the best skills on the field, quarterbacks, and certainly sometimes, but I believe he was the greatest thinker as a quarterback. And what he always said is, you do the simple things over and over again with precision. And that means that you learn these simple techniques we're going to cover in a minute. And you do them over and over and over again with precision. So if you look at this diagram we have here, look at the top piece. Have logical objectives. People who can coordinate and accept responsibility. Over to the right, make sure everyone clearly understands roles and tasks. You can't take a new person or someone not capable of doing a three-way call where they have to answer questions and direct somebody to joining the company, directing them to membership. Ask them to do that if they're not ready. Maybe that's not one of their skills. Maybe they can learn it, but as long as you know and people understand their role and the tasks they have to perform, so if you take your team initially, this is what we do. We send a welcome letter and we thank people for allowing us to guide them through the process. If you send that letter out, you better be prepared to guide them. And that may mean pointing to someone who knows how to guide them. That may be your task initially. Sending them the letter that says, thanks for letting me do it, and we're going to move forward, and then open the PDF and let's get started. The PDF immediately takes them to your back office and explains the back office links, because what do we want to do first? We want people that link to others to educate them on what it is we do. That's key right away to get started. Look, you don't have a new member until your new member has a member. If you're building, that's the truth. When your new person gets a new person, then you truly have a good new community member. Until that happens, no growth potential in that position. So you teach people the tasks. It's very simple, the simple things, right? Welcome, say hello, send them the PDF. The minute registration happens, you pick up the phone and introduce them to somebody else. That's the system. Next person. Introduce them to a few people so they have contacts and they feel part of a group, and then acclimate them to what it is we're doing, whether we're sending them to social media platforms and groups to communicate with, or you're sending them to Breakfast Club Wednesday nights, Thursday nights. But that process has to start, and everybody has to know their task. It has to be clearly understood, which is why we send the letter, and they have to understand their role and their task. Their first task, their role is to learn. Their task is to go send this link to people. And when you get them to me. And again, in our class, we teach how to do the introduction. Look at the third one. Well, delegating tasks to people with the right skills. We just covered that. Using people with different skills. Look what we talked about this week. We have a team of, let's call it a design team. It's a marketing team. This is a Breakfast Club marketing team. Mark Stevens writes tremendous letters, tremendous emails to influence people to even look. And so we create these kinds of things. Mark knows where his forte is. It's not fixing the document. It's creating the environment, creating the initial message to the prospect. Shirley Pitts, she'll be with us next week here. She looks this stuff over. I read it to her. I talk to her every time we get the document and go, okay, tell me what the average person would hear and would they understand this? Sometimes she tells me that paragraph or that sentence doesn't make sense. What do you mean? If I get that response from her, I know that other people are going to get it too, so we better correct it. And Vicki may start correcting those things, but ultimately when we get to the point of, okay, we think we got something, we know we're not done, we take it to the person who is most skilled to straighten the document out, to correct the grammar, to separate pages if need be, to separate paragraphs, to insert the proper words, to put the commas and so on in there so that we have a professional document. That's Vicki Terry, senior tech editor for a major company dealing with NASA. They have a contract with NASA. It's what she does. She's offered her skill. You know why? You know why the people do this? Because they want others to learn to this stuff. That's why they do it. And we end up with a professional document or documents, and it includes these notes you're going to see that Vicki, just after a couple of years of having them a certain way, called me and said, I have a suggestion. Let's do it this way. I didn't call her up and say, hey, go do this. I'm not a boss. We sit at a round table, so to speak, and no one tells anybody what to do. We make suggestions for it. Now, the reason I'm telling you this is because of delegating skills. I believe what I learned a long time ago from Art Williams and Bob Safford is that you put a team of people around you. You don't just somebody, hey, you're going to be here, and then you individually. Team starts with an individual. And each individual has to want to be part of a team. How do you go from the group? Well, you got a lot of people, and people stand up and show themselves. It's what they do. They say, I want to be a leader, I want to be a follower. Either one is fine. But the leader will stand up and say, I will do. But that leader's responsibility is to surround herself with other people who want to help coordinate business activities. The biggest activity that you can perform in this business is to communicate with someone. is to find out if you're on the same page with someone when they look at the information. Is to get them over to a person who can then guide them to membership. Vicki, I think I'm sure she's on the call. Type in the word you suggested we use other than registration. I am so sorry I'm missing that. Thought it was membership. Maybe I'm wrong. He's probably cringing saying he doesn't remember. Mark, see if you can see Vicki type that in there. It's a word that we used to always in other companies use the word registration. We use the word recruit, and we now use the word influence. These things from Peter and Vicki and other people to learn to get that dialogue, that terminology down correctly in unison with everyone else. So again, that group to team is a decision by an individual who wants to be part of a leadership team that puts things together. That's how we come up with our stuff. And certainly, we could share the notes today from the class. We're going to flash them up there. I can tell you now, it won't make any difference. If you copied them, looked at them, and tried to understand, you're not going to understand them. And I know everybody that's had the class will verify that. But this is the part, the initial part of actually communicating a message. If you're a leader and you want something to happen, want tasks to be performed, my suggestion is you put a group of people together who are skilled, not randomly pulled out because they're participating, because they're sending emails. I'm talking about a person who you can work with logically on a regular basis, who has input that's valuable to the team. And they work themselves. I know that Shirley Pitts works. I know that she has honed her skills to the point of, it's probably cringe when I say this, that she's going to work with her in the next couple of weeks to actually be able to do a three-way, and she probably can do it now. It's not easy to do that three-way direct. Most people, Mark, that I have experienced in all these 22 years is that most of the people I took someone to that didn't understand real communication, three-way call so bad, 90% of the time, I did not recruit that person because they wasted so much time, energy on all the wrong type of talk. I'm talking people who think they're gurus in the industry, who have no clue how to do a real three-way call. Shirley, I listened to her on the phone, Mark, a couple weeks ago at my house. Her phone rang, her cell phone, and she answered a call from a prospect. And I was just, it's the first time I actually heard her after these last couple of years being in the class and everything. I never really heard her do the call. I know she goes to practice sessions and all, but when I heard her do the call, I went, oh my gosh. Understood what she needed to do. So I'm thrilled that, and of course, I mean, you look at a guy like Mark Stevens, who he'll tell you a couple of years ago, 3-4 years ago, when he first took the class, right now he could not only teach the class, he'd probably write the class again. To have people around like that who know what they're doing. Imagine being in an IBM office following your boss who didn't know what he was doing. Trying something that he didn't know. So we'll get to these other things about teamwork. Part 3 of this series is team building. But this is the structure of team building. And once again, if you don't want to work, there you go. Just keep up excuses. And I know everybody knows that, remember the time you sat there and you were going to make phone calls and, the phone rang and your friend called and, somebody knocked at the door, or you remembered you had to do laundry today, and before you know it, the day went by, and you made maybe 1 or 2 calls when you should have made 10 or 20. I know that because I happened to have that happen to me in the past. I'm not pointing fingers, as you might. No, but I experienced all this. I know what it's like to make excuses. But when you stop the excuses, the results come. You have to learn how to get your team together, a real team. I don't mean just anybody. There's 4 people we communicate with here, overall, out of all the years, out of all the people here. So, first step, decide that you want to have a team, and then individuals decide whether they want to be part. But if they are going to be part, then everybody has to get on the same page. Everybody has to basically follow a pattern of behavior when talking to people and communicating. And if you don't think that's important, then just remember, keep doing what you're doing. You'll end up where you were before. So some notes here. Now I want to tell you something. Now this is the document that Vicki just condensed, organized after all these years of this class, 15, 17 years of a class, having the notes and redoing them. And what happened was, for Kula Brands, Vicki said to me, Joe, we need to take the generic notes from the class, because the class is generic. It doesn't talk about Kula Brands. It doesn't talk about any company. But when it comes to the notes, we need Kula Brands inserted into, when someone takes the class from Kula Brands, they need the questions and answers, learning what to say to a prospect with the actual name of Kula Brands in there. So she spent, I can't tell you how much time she just spent putting this together. She went in and changed, and we reviewed it and went back over it and reviewed it and back over it and changed and did, and she organized it, the way it should be. And I'll have things to say and go, well, maybe we shouldn't, and she'll give me why. She'll say, no, well, here's why we need to do it this way. And if you don't let your ego get in the way, then you can listen to other people who have a different perspective. And that's what this class is about. It's really about perspective. It's learning how to think properly. Here's the point of communicating. Your whole team needs to think like this. They have to understand that the terminology that they use when they're talking to someone creates a perception, and that perception had better make sense to the listener. If it doesn't make sense, you are not going to influence that person whatsoever. You're going to sit there and try to convince them, which will never, ever work. So, Mark, why don't you pick up on that page there, and you can see the page, right?
Yeah, I can see it. I'm getting an echo. Yeah, well, again, terminology perception, as we said, it has to make sense, because if you're going to be in a business and you want somebody to follow you in business, then they have to have the right perception of, number one, you and of that business. And based on what you say to them and how you say it, is a perception that they're going to get about you and your business. And, as if you often heard Joe say, that people will follow people, that has courage as opposed to everything else. So in essence, you have to know what you're doing. You have to know how to say it. You have to know how to say it correctly, because if you're presenting your business, and especially if you're presenting this Kula Brand business, then you have to know what to say and how to say it so that people will understand it. Because, again, they're used to, especially if you get somebody that's been in the business a long time and has never been successful, because they've heard the same bad, information over and over and over. And if you know what to say to them and how to say it properly and give them the right perception, it's going to be a refreshing experience with them, and they're going to want to join your business. They're going to want to know more about it. But again, you're going to have to know how to approach them. You're going to have to, know, the parts of a sales call. You're going to have to know when you get somebody on a third-party call, whether you're a director or whether you're a director in training. You're going to have to know those things. And the only way you're going to know it is take the class. That's the only way that I know. It just doesn't, it's just not going to just come to you. You're going to have to learn it. And, it's really about the training of the mind, as Einstein said. And you can't train the mind unless you have the right knowledge to do it. And the class gives you that knowledge to do it. So that's why you hear us talk about the class. It's not that something is trying to be sold. It's the right thing to do and to know. And it's the right thing to know it as a team, because as I said, team together, everyone achieves more. You can't do that in a group. A group, you got people going all different ways. But as a team, everybody has the same concept. They're using the same terminology. They're giving the people out there that you want to bring, the locations you want to get, things of that nature. They're getting the right perception. Why? Because everybody is thinking the same, everybody is saying the same, and everybody is practicing the same. So, but how are you going to do that? You have to understand the scripts. And then, once you understand the scripts, then it becomes second nature to you. Then, you can just say it in your regular talking or whatever, but learning it, you can't change it. Definitely don't change it. Learn it as it is. And then as you learn it more, then you can go from one part to another, from the back to the end to the middle. When you get that good at it, then, you can do that. But again, without the proper terminology, the perception that you're going to give somebody is going to not be the proper perception.
Mark, when I first had conversations with Peter and Doug and so on, and I think I might have got on a call one time. They asked me to speak about something, and I used the word recruiting. And then Peter, afterwards, we talked, and he said, "I want you to use the word influence." And I'll tell you, I was so not used to hearing that. I didn't even like the word. And he said, "Joe, that's what people are using. That's what the industry or, the terminology in social media, that's the word that is out there." And I said, "Really? I wasn't aware of that. I had never heard that before." Now, it took me a little while to get used to it. In fact, it took me a little while to want to use it. Honestly, it did. But I can't say, "Well, that's the way you say it, Peter," but I'm not going to do it.
Well, Joe, remember what Napoleon Hill wrote: "How to win friends and influence people."
Yeah.
That's what we really do. And Peter made us aware that we try to influence people to see things our way. And once we get them to do that, then we can get them to enroll. Is that so?
Well, you know what? I never saw that. It's really funny. I have that book on my desk. I have several copies of it. And I never thought of that.
And what does he talk about, too? He talks about a mastermind, right? And a mastermind is when you have a team. That's what you do. You bring a team together, and that's where the mastermind comes in, and then you go from there.
You know what? Thank you for bringing that to me about the book. I never relate it, using it here to what Carnegie teaches. It's unbelievable. Thank you. So anyway, yeah, so I'm used to using it now. And I know people around me, they know now. Those who used to hear me say recruiting now hear influence, and all of us talk about it that way now. But you're right. This little group we have is in our creation of documents and scripts and things is a little mastermind group where we all have input. We all and sometimes we don't always agree, but we do say, okay, well, we'll go that way. That's what I did with Peter when he said influence. I want to get that word recruiting out of here. I have to be part of a team that says, hey, I'm going to follow. There's no system if you're not going to follow what the team is doing. So it's so important. It's so important to get a team and then guide the rest of your people and continue to add them to your team. They don't have to be part of a decision-making team, but a team that follows a system. I think I wrote this now, Mark, in the thank you for taking the class of email that I We just got that done. And I think I ended up with, and I changed the word in there. It said, I always learned it one way, but in order to be successful, you have to be part of a team whereby influencing never stops. Bottom line, you have to, in other words, you have to keep growing. Growth for us are new people who see our company, who see our process, who see this company and embrace it. That is what new people locations are all about. And in order to be successful, you have to be part of a team whereby influencing never stops. How are you going to do that? You can't just make something up and tell everybody to follow it. You got to pull your people together and have them understand the principles of teamwork. So we go down a little further. Mark talked about this. You got to know telephone techniques. I know people may copy this, look at it, and say, well, I can learn. You can't learn this without the class, because you're not even going to understand what the word be assumptive means. How critical, Mark, is it to actually be assumptive during a phone call? People listening probably don't even get that. But I can tell you now, it's one of the keys. It's why it's the first thing up there.
Yeah, it's very important.
And understanding reflex questions. This is look, the key word up here is techniques. There are techniques in a conversation. Techniques to use. Why? Because your goal is to move the person to the next step. If you are the person who has made the contact initially, someone has seen or opted into a page, or you're calling them for the first time, you have steps to go through. Next step is look at the information. If they've looked and opted in, next step is over to a director. There are techniques to get them to that step. And if you don't understand them, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get bombarded with questions that maybe you're answering, but you're being interviewed by the prospect. And when you get done, after all the questions are done and you think you've answered them, if your objective is not to move them to the next step and know the techniques to move them there quickly, you're going to get the end of the conversation with, I'll get back to you, or, I'll think this over, or, let me run this by so-and-so, and that's what you're going to get. We don't get that. Why? Because we know the techniques to move them to the next step. This is part of team. If your team if you think you have a team and everybody's doing something different, forget it. You don't have a team, you have a group. But when your team understands the principles, when they're all doing the same thing, their objective on the phone is either to make an appointment if they've not seen anything, or move them to the next step. It's the only two choices you have. That's it. Next step might be, hey, did Vicky ever type in the box?
No, I didn't see it on there. But Shirley put in there enrollment.
Thank you. That's the word. That next step could be enrollment. Might not be to the job. You might be past that. You're on the phone. Maybe you're done with the manager director. Maybe they've just directed you to get the person registered. So your next step, enrollment. What's the next step? This is the whole system. Sometimes, Mark, I get so frustrated because people just think they joined the company and, you always say this, can't treat it like a hobby. If you do, you'll end up with a hobby. But if you want a serious business, if you want to grow a business and be able to be proud and say, you know what, I am with Kula Brands. I have a business within the company. I'm part of a team. I'm helping the company grow, and I'm growing as a result. If you have that, you have a team. You have yourself as a leader. If you have those objectives. But I get frustrated because I see people that not understand, they'll just make the phone call and they're just doing it and they hope, and then before you know it, nobody listens to them. You know why? Don't understand any telephone techniques. You don't know your objective when you get on the phone. And you know what? If you went into an office where this was mandatory, you'd learn it in a heartbeat. The problem is you're on your own. It's not mandatory. It's mandatory for success. It's not mandatory when you are enrolled. You notice who came up with the answer there? I'm going to tell you right now. Vicki Terry right now is involved in over 350, 400 pages of documents for NASA, for her company getting over to NASA right now. She's been up all hours of the night and she's still putting together stuff for us, but that's where she is. So if she's not here and is not answering, that's because she's probably working away. I know she was up all night with this. But, you know, notice who came up with the answer, Mark, that I was looking for. You know why? She's part of our little master group, our team here that does the documents. Of course she knew the answer. And here I am not knowing it. we created the other night when we did the document and I had the thing in, she said, no, Joe, we got to use enrollment in there. And I said, yes. I'm not used to using the word enrollment. You know that, Mark. We've been used to all these years using the word registration. I have to change. I have to learn like everybody else.
Well, remember what I said, without change, there's no progress.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then when you think about it, when you get down to the director part, what does the director do? He directs the person to enrollment.
People don't understand. You know, Mark, I'm so glad you said that. You can elaborate on that if you like, but I'll just insert into that. Most people, why we call it a director. Now, there's no official title in any of our companies called a director. I mean, some have it, but most people don't understand what a director is. So let's go back to the example I put up of teamwork. Get everybody on the same page and know their role. That's one of the key elements in the beginning. Let them know their role, the role of the director. Do you know that? Do you know when you're doing a three-way what you're supposed to be doing? If you think you're supposed to be explaining Kula Brands, royalties, how it all works, without the final piece at the end, which is get them to enrollment. How do you do it? What do you say? Let's go enroll? No, we have a technique that was taught to us years ago. It's a question that actually puts them into action. Our step is action. Get them to act. Telephone voicemail voice conversation is active activity. Let's say that you're active. If you're sending emails and not doing anything, or just posting places and not communicating with people, you have a passive type activity. It's not a problem with that. There's a woman out there, we'll talk about it next week, who teaches this about passive and active and lists the activities in each column. I'll show them to you next week. But if you are a person doing a three-way call right now, and you don't know the question that one must ask as a director to commit the person to enrollment, not doing your job. If you're doing it and getting almost everyone enrolled with your technique, that's fine. It's nothing wrong with having a technique that works. You don't have to change to something else. If it works, teach your group what works, but you better make sure that you're consistent and everybody can do it. But why not learn the real skills? These are not my creations here. This document you're looking at comes from leaders in the industry. A specific leader, to be honest with you, many years ago. Experienced, successful business person teaching techniques when on the telephone instead of calling and saying, how you doing, how's the weather, and oh, the kids, and oh, you live there, I do too, I used to. None of that talk is necessary. And if you're using that type of approach, you know, all you're going to get is what you got before. and I know I'm talking accurately because 97% of the people, I don't care who you are, 97%. If you're in the 3%, I congratulate you. 97% have not been successful, not achieved what they wanted in the industry, or even made enough money probably to pay for their products and services. We spend time on this page because this is part of the communication. It's not just learning scripts. Forget the scripts right now. If you don't know the techniques, none of the scripts that you'll learn in the class mean anything to you. None. To me, Mark, this is the most important page, is learning techniques, learning how to, if a person asks you a question that, you know, is just off the track and throw something at you, are you making money? This sounds like a pyramid. If you cringe when that happens, instead of kind of smiling and saying, sure, not a problem, let me answer that. And then going back to your objective. If you don't know the technique to do that, you're going to be lost. You probably are. So I cannot stress enough to learn the techniques. Vicky's developing groups again to practice and go over and help people. That's who she is. She wants to help others. She doesn't care what group they're in. She wants people to learn this stuff. She wants them to get it. And she's willing to put together the classes, the practice sessions that make it happen. And if you think that's beyond you, then obviously you won't ever be part of a team. When I tell you in a couple weeks, the person here who's actually learning and joining in on that, you'll be pretty much surprised and thrilled to see. I'm not announcing that yet. And then if you don't understand the 5 parts of a conversation, you'll be lost as well. So that goes along with techniques, but you got to know, Mark mentioned this earlier, whether you're at the end, the beginning, or whatever, do you understand where you are in the conversation? Are you at the point where what you're telling the person what you want them to do? That could be, again, enrollment, over to a director, or getting more information. Do you know how to tie the appointment down if you make an appointment, which you should be doing on every phone call anyway? Do you understand that what a director says that the director in training says? They're 2 different things. And here's where we say it here. Look, what is the director's job? One of the key elements of our business is using a 3-way telephone call in order to have your prospect speak to someone in your organization or company. Refer to that as a director. The function of the director is to interview the prospect, answer any questions he or she may have at that time. In addition, the director's job, what Mark just say? Direct the prospect to enrollment with our company. For your company. Simple, but you better know how to do it. This is how you develop a team. This is part of it, to communication, to get everybody on the same page and learn the objectives here. And telephone conversation is critical. Everybody knows, ask any leader or any experienced person, it's all going to come down to communication. So we get into what the director says. We're not going to cover that right now. Then as we move on, we talk about the scripts. What about a cold market? What if you wanted to call somebody up, you didn't know them, they don't have any information, and maybe you had a list that you just want to go give them the information and see if you can get them over to looking at your website. How would you do it? Do you know how to do it? A lot of people wouldn't do it. Mark, as you know, I prefer talking to people that I don't know than people I do know. Now, no disrespect to the people I know. I mean, we have great people that I spoke to, that you spoke to, that Vicky and everybody spoke to. I want to do that, but if I had to make 50 phone calls today, I think I'd rather make a cold market phone. There's no fear of rejection, which obviously we don't have after taking the class, but there's no fear of anything. You just have a call and you go, look, it's what insurance people do. It's what real estate people do. They call neighborhoods to find who wants to sell their house. It's called a cold call. You want to do it? Do it. If you don't want to do it, that's okay. But if you're going to do it, you better do it the right way. Now, I can tell you now, you know what Mark Stevens does? He does this, except he does it live because he visits businesses and people, and he likes to do that live. Guess what? When he walks into an office and goes and talks to the person in charge, that's a cold call. It's a cold call. It's just not on the telephone. Might be a lot harder. I would think it is a lot harder to walk up face to face and have that. But Mark, you know what? People don't follow people. They follow courage. He has enough courage to walk in the office or on the street or talk to somebody because he knows how to do it. He knows the techniques. So we'll just run through these real quick. This is all this. All these scripts are for different reasons. Now, let's assume you make an appointment with somebody. This is what we were showing the other day. So we'll show it now. They can go look at it. What happens when you make an appointment? Do you have a professional letter that goes out? Well, that's what it should look like. It's very simple. You made the appointment. They're going to get back to you tomorrow after looking at something. It's your friend. Mary, as per our conversation today, watch this short business overview. We'll get back together at our scheduled time to discuss the possibilities. Now, any more simple than that? You want to write all about royalties and don't forget to do it. You forget it. This is all you need. It's an appointment letter. Give them the appointment time, so on, and there they go. This is after you've talked to them, made the appointment, and now you want to back it up with a reminder. That's what we do. That's part of the system. Then, you have a cold market interview when you call them back the second time. What happens then when you call back and say, hey, Mike, we had an appointment today at 4:30 and, on a scale of 1 to 10 and so on about what happened during watching this. That's what you want to know. That's the basis of it. But there's a dialogue here that takes place. And there it is. And then we go on to what if they watched something already? What if you had an autoresponder and somebody clicked and opted in? You've never talked to them yet, but they opted in. The script's a little different. Do you know how to do that? And do you know what if you have that, the next step is not appointment. The next step is right here, introducing the director. Do you know how to introduce the director? I don't talk to anybody that introduces me to someone if they don't know this. Mark and Vicky, none of them do. You better do it right. The person you're introducing them to had better know that the person they're coming to is someone who knows what they're doing. There's the dialogue. And if it were, if you read that there, Frank, this is Mark Stevens. Mark is a director and trainer for our company. It's true when you bring somebody who knows what they're doing. He's been in the industry for over, and you can put it in there. In Mark's case, it's 20 years. He's had great success teaching people how to manage a successful business from home. Why do you have to say any more than that? That's the introduction who Mark is. Now, they know. We've got a director, trainer type person on the phone. They've had experience. They're here and they're able to handle this. That's what it says. So please, if you're listening and you're doing three-ways with me, understand, I don't do it any other way. Get that script and do it. And then here's the key part of it, so that the person now knows that they are first going to have we're going to have questions for them first. You do not put somebody on and say, well, this is Mark, and Mark, this is Tom. He looked at some things, and he's going to ask you a lot of questions. That sets Mark up for kind of a negative interview. All of a sudden, Mark's going to get interviewed. But if you do this right and say, Frank, Mark, this is Bob Smith. Bob, listen to the business overview. I feel we might have a match here, and I thought you might have a few questions for Bob. And then Mark takes over. And we'll get to that later on what the director does, but that's all taught in the class. We just covered that. And then when you get to the end, question, Mark, the question really is, with a little bit of training and support and coaching and a lot of support, can you see yourself doing what it takes to be successful here at Kula Brands? If the answer is yes, we are getting to registration, and the direction now comes. Mike, I want you to register Bob, and then after the registration, or enroll Bob, sorry, get them enrolled into the company. And as soon as you do, call me back. I want to welcome them to the company. I want to send that welcome letter over, and I want you to introduce them to some others. That's the process. That's the process. That's how it goes. Now, want a team? Teach them a system. There's two ways to look at this. Develop, by influencing never stops. Why go develop something you don't know what you're doing? If you've never been successful, how in the world can you sit there and develop a system whereby influencing never stops? If you've never ever had that, why not part of a system whereby influencing never stops and learn it? Time, effort, and that's what change is about. And that's where we are. So we're not going to go anymore, but you do see this. The things we handle there. That person who brings the member who brings a new person to you better be comfortable that when a person, and you better be comfortable when these questions start. Now, they don't always come up, but what if they did? We had that pyramid thing come up the other day. So how do you answer it? Do you know? Is your whole team answering it the same? Are they using it? If not, you don't have a team. A second baseman doesn't decide how he's going to participate in a double play and use a different technique that's being taught. He doesn't do that. He's either part of the team or he's not, or he doesn't play second base, and that goes for every position. They develop systems within sporting with sports teams. They develop systems. That's why they're called a team. They develop plays that go exactly the way they wanted them to go. Don't care what, Stephen Curry says, oh no, we should do it that way. No, the team does it this way. So therefore, we're going to play and follow that pattern. So I think everybody gets the gist, Mark. We could spend another day on this stuff, which we do. But, all the questions, answers come here. And until you get comfortable, I tell everybody, memorize the scripts along with questions and answers. Get these correct. Getting them correct is exactly how you duplicate. There's that team again. Duplication. Team equals duplication. Everybody's doing the same. And if you start creating, you get them. And I think I'm going to say this. I've actually don't want to work with people who come in and they start these practice things and they want to say, well, we can say it like this because we can put our own flair. I'm more comfortable. Don't work with us. Changing the scripts and answers is never going to duplicate. So I just turn it over to you, Mark. We are longer than I want it to be, and that's the important part. I think everybody gets and hears and probably is saying, okay, I get it. Hopefully you do. So
okay.
Next week we're going to be covering part 3, which is team building. How do you really build a team now? Team building. This is the concept, the two elements, leadership and communication. Now how do you build that team? Over to you, buddy. Thanks for listening today, everyone, and hope you have a wonderful Kula day. And my good friend Mark, I'm just always appreciative that you are here. I know you could do this whole session without me, for sure, which I'm thrilled about, as you know. But,
okay. Great information. Any guests we have? You want to get in touch with Joe and take that class, because it will definitely make a difference in your business. Those that have taken it You want to review it. If you're not up to where you should be or want to be, it's just a matter of going over it. And again, the techniques really that helps you train your mind. And when you have your mind trained, so training of the mind and all of this, and you'll know what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and what to say to everyone. Just remember, terminology and perception, it has to make sense. But you have to be trained in that and have to be understanding techniques to get that done. So with that being said, peace and blessing, everyone. Thanks for listening. Make it a great day. Again, those that are with you now that haven't taken the class, try to get them back on next week. So they'll, get the last part 3, and then get them into that class if they're not into that class. Encourage them to get into the class like you did, and let them know how it's helped you and everything, and how to benefit them. And once they do that, they'll see a big change in their business and getting people involved in this business. So make it, as Joe said, make it a great, cooler day, cooler week. And we'll see you back here. So this is Mark Stevens, our host, Joe Shue. Peace and blessings to you. And we'll see you back here next week at 12 noon, 9 West Coast time. And we'll see you back on the Breakfast Club. Make it a great day, everybody.